Welcome to the Miniatures Paintbrush. Today we're going to paint up a Pathfinder Reaper Miniatures Troll. Let's see what colors we should paint it. Maybe some troll hide. This blue is really good. Maybe I should paint it that. What do you think?
Love, these little thingies that you paint, you always paint them purple and blue. Why don't you paint them my favorite color? Orange.
Hello and welcome back. We're going to start off with some basing kitty litter, and I have some scenic basing material there for scenic sand, and I have some little bit of material there, some baking soda. I do like to grease my sand with baking soda for my bases, and just enough so I can shift things around. And kitty litter gives it a real gravelly look when I don't want to use actual road gravel, which is it does a very good job when it comes to different sizes. But this is a little more uniform in size. I just haven't used the kitty litter, and I just felt like I was in the mood. There was when I base materials and use basing materials, sometimes I just feel like I'm in the mood to use something, and I just go for it. And what I'm using here is a little sculpting tool, and I'm moving around the basing material. Everything seems to be a little uniform, and it's okay to do this because the sand mixed in with the baking soda and the regular Elmer's glue or white glue, if you pull away the kitty litter, you're gonna have that sand base underneath. And it's real gritty, so it looks like ground, and it doesn't. The whole thing is it doesn't look like a flat surface on the bottom of your basing material. That doesn't look natural, because if you're out in the wild, the floor isn't it's beveled and it has bumps and hills, so it's not really going to look like a flat, smooth surface. So to do away with that, a whole bunch of PBA glue and some sand. And I'm pretty happy with this, and there you go. Now I did prime the miniature. It is a Reaper's Bone, saying goodbye there. And I did prime the miniature using Rust-Oleum, and it's the camouflage, and I took out all those mold lines, if you can see that right there. And once it was primed. Now they say you don't have to prime Bones miniatures, but I don't know. I haven't felt comfortable with that. So now I'm going to black bomb it on top of it, because when I primed it the first time with the rattle can, I noticed the nasty mold lines, and I kind of wanted to take that off. So if you're unsure, give it a light coat of prime throughout, just because those mold lines are really going to show up. They show up on lighter colors than better than they do on black, in my opinion. So that's why I give it a coat of primer really quickly with lighter colors, and then I'll hit it with the darker color if I wanted to go for the darker color. Now this is just that Stynal Res black through the airbrush, and getting it all over every little bit. And I do like using an airbrush for priming because, well, first off, it doesn't release any of those gases that you would get from rattle can. And it's safe to do indoors as long as it's a well-ventilated area. And second is because there's just so much more control when it comes to using primer. Yes, troll, huh? Yeah, that's what we're working on, aren't we? All right. This actually went together very easily. There were some bits to it, like the head. I ripped off the head because they come pre-glued, and then I just reassembled it and filled in the gaps. Okay, so here what I'm doing is I'm taking gray primer, and what I'm doing is hitting from the top and from a 45-degree angle, mainly from the top, trying to give it a zenithal highlighting, and just indicating where the light source will be. If nothing else, zenithal highlighting actually tells you if the light is at a certain area what areas of the miniature would be highlighted. So you can do a study on light, or you can just do some cenital highlighting. And now what I'm going to do is the last step. I'm using Style Res again from Badger Company. Primer, and I do like that because it's self-leveling, and I'm just going to hit the white areas, the hot spots where the light is hitting the brightest. So on the top of the head and the tips of the hands, and anywhere that I think that the light is going to hit the absolute most and illuminate the most. And again, I like the control on this. I'm slowly building up the lit areas. It's just very, very slowly building up the lit areas and creating a hot spot. You can see the head right now is very, very bright. And the reason why I want the head to be the brightest is because when you do a miniature, the face is the first thing that you're going to notice. It's what you're drawn to. And I'm going to start out with Fantasy and Games. And this is scale 75, Fantasy and Games line. It's called Chink Orange. And like my wife had told me, yeah, you know, Rob, you're painting the blue too much. Everything you own is greens and blues and purples. It's just very cold colors, and you always have a lot of cold colors. And you never venture over into the reds and the oranges, and I want warmer colors. I said, okay. I said, what color? Yeah, she said orange. So, okay, we're going to do this orange, an orange troll, which is definitely thinking outside the box for me because I've never painted anything orange before, except for a turn signal light on a car, because that's what I do. I paint scale models as well. So, yeah, so what I'm doing here is a sketch style painting, and all I'm using here is a glaze, and I use a glaze medium along with the paint, and I dilute that down way, way down. I mean, way, way down. You're not going for coverage here. The whole point of these glazes, or glazing period, is you want whatever bottom color there is to shine through. You actually want the color to shine through. So in order to allow the color to shine through, it has to be extremely diluted. And the more you dilute it, the more control you have as you build up the colors. And you could do a layer of color. You got to let that dry, and then you got to do the next layer of color. Which brings me up to my first rambling. Because if you've ever seen any one of my videos before, I go off on tangents while I'm painting things. And I try to show you what I'm doing here step by step. But what I'm basically doing here is I'm just going to glaze the orange all over. Just glazing the orange, creating that contrast, and pushing paint around. And it's going to be a replicated process throughout the entire miniature. I'm almost washing the miniature in it, but I'm not using all too much paint versus water. I'm not dipping it in there, and I'm not pooling it in there. But I am, leaving my brush reasonably saturated with some of that orange glaze, and just building up the color to where I want to. Remember that when you're doing something like this, allow the paint to dry in one area, and while that paint is drying in one area, you work on another area of the model. And then when you finish all the areas of the model, you come back to that first spot. You keep going around the miniature in that style. The head, the arms, then the hands, and then the legs, and then the back, and then back to the head. And you go on to that same cycle over and over again. I mean, I was just an example right there. You can do it any way you want. There's no real rules for which order in which you paint your miniature. So if you're just painting all the same color, just any part of the body, one part, and dictate that's going to be the first part. Just make sure that that's going to be the last part you do as well, and start the cycle over again. If you do it in the same rotation, what should happen is, especially when you have light coats like this, that when you go back to the beginning of that cycle, that first paint that you laid down is going to be completely dried, and you'll put another layer. Now what this does is the first part, you don't allow coffee stains on your models. And what that is that when the paint pulls onto the right on the sides, because you passed your brush along a wet area which has dried and the pigment dried on the sides of it, but it hasn't dried in the middle yet, and you pull off the middle bit of paint, and what happens is it just draws back into the brush and removes the paint. So this way you'll have a nice ring around where you painted. And that's something you want to avoid on a miniature unless that's what you're really going for. But I found that that's very insightful when you're trying to create something, especially because those things are huge compared to the scale of the miniature. Okay, so yeah, let's talk about layering versus glazing. Now, when I glaze, what you want to do is you want that color underneath to show through. So I really want a little bit of that muted gray, and I really want that white to reflect the orange the brightest. This way it looks sort of muted up to the face where it comes and really pops at you when it comes to that orange. And the reason why I did that as a glaze is because I want to bring your eyes, like I want when you look at the miniature, to focus in on that face, because that face is all encompassing. That face has those big, large tusk and that long tongue coming out of that mouth, or that elongated chin. And I don't know, I have no idea how this thing would eat some breakfast, because sausages and eggs would be lost on this dude, in my opinion. I mean, you can't even close his nose like, that's all I would think. I mean, that sounds disgusting, dude. Anyway, it's kind of hard to draw yourself away from that. In real life, if it were in real life, if you weren't running for your life, that is. But also, if it was just your big old friendly troll, I don't think those exist in stories. They might. Add to the comment if you think they do. And he's just a big old friendly troll. You kind of want to look him in the face. You know, he's like, what am I, a piece of meat? Tilt your eyes up and look at my face. Here are my eyes. Look at my eyes. Ladies, you know what I'm talking about, right? Anyway, so what's the difference between layering and glazing? I thought that layering is putting on very thin coats, allowing it to dry and putting on another coat. Yes, it is. So wait a second, isn't that exactly the same thing that I'm doing here? Yes, for the most part. But the only thing is, when I'm layering, I do want the coverage. I do want to cover what's underneath it. I'm putting the shadows in. I'm manually putting the shadows in. And I'm not allowing the underneath color to mix in with the color of the paint that's on top, or at least not allowing it to affect it as much as I would with glazing. Glazing is like a tint, where layering, you want some opacity. That's it. You want some opacity. That means you want it to block in. You want it to color like a base coat over a model. You kind of want to block it in. So yeah, so you got the layering versus glazing. What we're doing is glazing. Very similar, but very distinct at the same time. Okay, so next topic. I do want to talk about what I am doing when it comes to the channel, and I'm going to have a complete channel update coming up. I do want a new camera, and I am working on it. I'm looking at the Canon T7i, and with a microphone, with a Rode microphone, which is decent sound quality, and this way I don't have to, I guess, voice over my intros and outros, because if you've seen my earlier video and you try to listen to it in stereo, it's going to come out mono. It's going to come out on one side, one speaker only. And the reason for that is the current DSLR camera that I have that I use to record, his microphone really stinks. It just does. And there's no attachment for a microphone on that phone. So I'm going to bite the bullet, and I'll invest about $1,000 on a new phone. And $1,000 on a new camera with the right setup that I believe. And I will be fiddling with that thing, because photography is another one of my hobbies. And videography is also another one of my hobbies. I mean, they're all kind of related, which is good for me. I'm not too far off when it comes to my hobbies. They all kind of integrate. But I kind of like to look at colors and the way that light plays off of things. So this is why I'm studying those things. And when I'm in nature and I see something that aesthetically is pleasing to me, I take a picture of it. And that helps me. So I love photography for that nature because it enhances my eye when it comes to painting. It also enhances my eye when it comes to appreciating beauty. So, new camera on the way if it hasn't been here by the time I air this. So there's going to be a learning curve when it comes to that. So I'm probably going to make a lot of mistakes before I get it done right. Just like all my miniatures. I make a ton of mistakes before my paint jobs come out all right. And that's okay because it's a learning process and this is a journey. And my, creating YouTube content is a journey also for me. And creating it acceptably, for me, it's good enough for me, is a journey. So I do make mistakes, but I promise this much. I promise to learn from my mistakes and always try to get better, which is all you can do. That's all you can ask for when it comes to miniatures, creating miniatures, and it's all you can ask for yourself. When anything that you're doing, just do the best that you can and always try to improve and learn from your mistakes. Okay? So one thing I mentioned with that new camera is new audio, and I'll have audio. I'm going to look into sound deadening foam. If I can, I'll install that somehow in this little nerd paradise that I have down here in my basement. Little recording studio / hobby center / place where I put all my miniatures that I bought and I haven't done yet. According with games. Oh man. Yep, I bit the bullet and got Shadespire too. And man, I want Black War. I want the Stormcast Eternals from the Black War set. And that's Snail Dude. That's it. Because I already bought Daemons of Nurgle Start Collecting set, and I don't want two of the same thing. And people say more fun. I'm like, I get bored if I taint the same thing over and over again. I mean, I guess I could torture myself like that, but then it won't be an enjoyable hobby. And since I haven't played, and who knows if I ever will play, I hope so, but I mean, I don't care if the point value isn't working. I don't really care if one unit doesn't mesh with another or this one is more efficient than the other. Like, I just think it looks cool and I'm going to paint it. That's it. And one day I'm going to go onto a gaming table and I'm going to say, okay, I have all these units. What should I use? I have no idea. I'll ask someone to help me and I'll learn how to play the game that way, but at least I'll have all the units if I ever wanted to use them. Right? They'll all be there. And besides, I'm not really playing to win at all cost anyway. I think I like to play if I'm going to play a game to have fun. And actually, I do like a challenge, so I don't want it to be easy to the point where I'm like completely dominating the other player. I have a friend that likes to do that likes to completely win and obliterate the competition. And that's great, but after 3,000 times doing that, maybe it still might be fun, but after 20,000 times doing that, it might still be fun, but after 30 million times doing that, it's like going to a toddler and saying, let's play poker, and you win every time. And the toddler doesn't even know it's playing. What's the point? For that, get yourself a dog or a cat and play Uno. Yeah, that's about as fun as it can be. But then again, when you have somebody and it's a challenge, and sometimes you obliterate them, but not all the time, then what do? Then they come back and they whip your butt back. So now it's a challenge. It's a struggle. It's something you're overcoming, and I love that. I love that. I love when things are even and it comes down to the last bit. It's exciting for me. I don't know. I can't. It's winning just for winning's sake is losing, in my opinion. Winning because you had a great game and you're enjoying your company with somebody else is where it's at for me. I like to put things in perspective. That being said, I do wanted to talk about, that audio. And I'm looking forward to that. And I'm really going to look into like sound deadening devices because I don't want any of the background noises and stuff that you might hear throughout. I kind of want it to be clear and concise because when it comes to audio, it's a huge deal. Like, even if the video is grainy, if the audio kicks butt, that's where it's at. So I'm really thinking about investing in the audio. And right now I'm using a Blue Yeti microphone with a pop filter onto it, but I'm in a cavernous basement. It is quite large, almost like a warehouse. So uh, the voice, if you know about reverberation, which is allowing for the voice to bounce back and give like a bit of an echo, so the voice can sound richer. It's not doing that. Also, it's not. It's getting lost. Like, some of the voice is traveling off in all directions, and it's not going into the mic. It's not bulleted. So possibly I'm going to have that bullet mic, and it's going to target around the voice, my voice, and then having the sound deadening around there, so you'll hear nothing but clear quality of my voice. So when you hear my voice, you can regurgitate in style because it's so disgusting, but it would be pure, unadulterated torture. It won't have any of that background noise or anything like that to take away from how gross my voice sounds. and and God bless you if you like listening to it. Like, really, I'm honored. Okay, so next up, on my agenda while I'm doing this, yep, I'm still glazing, and you can see the color. Actually, the color getting richer as I do it. Now, it takes a while to build these glazes up, but at the very least, the entire miniature is completely painted once I Zentil highlighted it. Now all I am doing is just blocking in color, which makes it super easy. It's like you don't have to really think too much when it comes to this. Yeah, you just throwing some paint here and throwing some paint there, and it makes it look great. This chink orange, I'm still on the same color. It's pretty good. This is the first time using uh, the fantasy and game line for painting something other than non-metallic metal, gold, which is why I bought that leather set to begin with. So I just wanted to use it as a main color and see what it's like and see how it brushes on, which it does nicely. I also wanted to see how it airbrushed on, because in this tutorial I use more than just sketch style painting. I use sketch style painting with an airbrush as well. Now it's time for the belly, and here I have that fantasy and games. There was a white there. I'll grab it just a second. Okay, that's a high key yellow, and the reason why I say that, it's HYKEY. It was an odd enunciation for that for me, so I'd actually grab it from my my game color rack. I do have to say thank you for Neverland Games in Hagerstown, Maryland, for donating this a Vallejo game color painting rack, steel, to me and to the miniatures paintbrush, so I can continue to paint. And thank you for carrying Vallejo paints and selling it to me at a discount. Truly helped me out. Truly helped me out. So now what I did is that I tried to glaze that light, almost white yellow color onto the belly. And you know what happens when you try to paint white over black? You will be there for the next century doing it. Eventually I get tired and I hit it with an airbrush. And I say, you know what? This is why you have an airbrush, to save you time. It's for nothing else, to get the desired effect of the blends that you want to by using the airbrush. Now, using an airbrush is more than just, spraying it haphazardly. That there's tip dry to contend with. There's the ways you mix it, the way you dilute it, the way it comes out, the pressure that you use, the PSI, how much you use the backstop, if you use a backstop at all, but how back you pull the trigger. And if you do want to get an airbrush, get a a dual airbrush where you can push down and push back and forth to give more or less paint and more or less air to the airbrush as well. And as you push down, and you want a gravity feed one as well. And there it is. I painted first. I'm just touching up a line right there. And then I'm hitting it with the airbrush. And I already hit it once, one little pass right there. And I just get it again. And I'm using a Badger Renegade. Do want an Iowata CPS, and part of me wants a Hybrid and Stimbeck, but I don't know. They're about $300 on Amazon. Not too bad though. When it comes to budget, $300 is a lot of money. But I gotta tell you, it does a wonderful job. And since I Zenithal highlighted, I knew exactly where I wanted it bright and where to build up the colors. Like when it comes to the hands, you take into consideration their shadow and where the shadow would be from the light source. So there's that as well. I really like using Fantasy and Gameline. It was really a pleasure to work with. I thought that it would be a little more difficult to work with, but it wasn't at all. It was very pleasing. I know there's like some kind of medium within there that allows you to actually put the paint onto the miniature and then aggregate it and push it around from there. Now I'm not 100% because it's more like oil painting style of painting, so I'm not 100% comfortable doing that. But I'm pretty comfortable doing that. What a wonderful color. What a wonderful color. Look how wonderful this color is. It's amazing. I do have a Dragonborn Paladin that I'm going to do for one of my friends as a commission, an unpaid commission. And he is a black Paladin, so Dragonborn Paladin. And the Dragonborn is based on the Black Dragon, but he's a cleric of Tiamat, and well, he has an inner struggle within him to fight off and shun off the evil. But I'm thinking about black with this yellow color as a belly or an underbase would look amazing. So I'm really, really happy about discovering and using these colors. The only way I know how a color will turn out on a miniature is actually using it. So I'm going back to the Chink Orange, and I'm going to create some hot spots on just a couple of areas there that are going to be completely blocked into the color. And using an airbrush again, I know how to dilute it, know the PSI, know how much to pull back the trigger, and knowing how to control the spray and putting the paint exactly where I want, and not allowing it to bead up and sprinkle and spritz. So this way, if it spritz, it drops water droplets, big ones and small ones throughout the whole area. And there's no spidering, is when you put too much paint and water diluted in one area for a long period of time. It'll create like a droplet of water, like when you put a drop onto a surface and you see that little bubble that it creates. Well, try to do that, but since there's air coming out, it'll spread it and push it out, and you'll have little droplets streaking in all directions. That's called spidering. So knowing how to control that, I am going to put some highlights of this orange on the very tops where the light is hitting it the most and reflecting back the orange, while everything else is a little bit duller, especially when it fades into that like darker black color that I have for the shadows, which I'll tint later on. So this is a really fun model to paint. One thing I do have to say about this model, I don't know how it was printed, or they put it into the packing too soon, or something was going on with this, because his feet were kind of tilted one way. So in order for him to stand up straight, I literally had to put in 2 pieces of caulking on an angle, so this way he would stand up straight, because there was no way he was going to stand up straight if I didn't. And just his feet alone, and coming from that position to the left, to his right, jumping towards his left, or it looks that way, I created a space onto the base itself where there was nothing there. So later on, I decided to put some Drool in there to really, really turn it up. All right, so next, I really, really wanted to talk about uh, steps of involvement into the hobby. Now, someone had asked me on Facebook what it took. Oh no, actually, it was on my channel. What it took to get the basics. Or was it Facebook? I can't remember. What it took to get the basics materials to in order to paint miniatures. And I gave a list of game-changing moments for me. Like having a wet palette was a game changer for me. Finding out using dull coat was a game changer for me. Decanting things were a game changer as well. A lot of game changing elements to me, making me a better one, a better artist. Now I'm going Arbuckles Brown and I'm painting that into the shadow because it's a nice rich purple. Don't tell my wife that I used purple on this model. She doesn't want me to use any cold colors, but shadows, I like purple for shadows. I really do. That black seems dull to me, and I want to create interest, and purple's just so perfect for that. Um, Although blues would have done well here as well because it's a complementary color, but I didn't want the shadows to pop that much, and it was close enough to blue for me. Anyway, besides, purple's my favorite color. That's because it's my birthstone. Anywho, a couple of things I wanted to speak about today. So steps involvement in the hobby. I told the person to get so many materials. There were so many game-changing things like super glue and getting a decent set of brushes. I told her to get told them to get acrylic brushes and the ones that you get in the packages at a craft store, and get yourself some larger size brushes for dry brushing and just generally messing up, and cheap brushes for that, but things that come to a point nonetheless. And then get yourself some nice brushes as well. Winsor & Newton Series 7 I hear is good, but I've only used Game Workshop brushes so far, although I do own the Winsor & Newtons. I'm still a little afraid to play with them. I also have the Complete Strategist brushes that I got from Manhattan. That was a game store, first game store I ever actually walked into in my life, and fell in love with miniatures right then and there. It was a Protectorate of Menoth, and it was a miniature that I really fell in love with, and I asked for a price for, and they wouldn't sell it to me. And that was a lady that was chained, but crying out for justice and floating above. I just thought it looked so cool, and one of these days I'm just going to get that model. I have no Protectorate of Menoth models, but that model just always looked cool to me, and they really did a good job on it. And I offered the guy $1,000 for the miniature, and he didn't sell it. That's integrity, man. That's integrity for your own work, and ever since then I just appreciate it so much. He said I'd show you how. I could show you how to do it, or you can do it yourself. You can have your own paint job. Man, that was a long time ago. But it just realized how involved do you want to be in the process of hobbying? All right, it's because if you really want to take this seriously, then a spray booth, airbrush, and airbrush flow improver, thinner, airbrush cleaner, several paints from several different lines, several complete lines of paint. Don't buy metallics unless you're buying Vallejo metal color at this point. When it comes to acrylics, don't waste your money on anything else, because just don't. Zip kicker, Tamiya's extra thin cement, super glue, the gel variety, the regular variety. You want washes, you want inks, FW inks, Vallejo inks, Inkintensity from scale 75. You want different layer paints, Vallejo model color, Army Painter washes, chipping medium, airbrush thinner, glaze medium, matte medium, gloss medium, I mean, decal fixer in case something happens, plastic putty, Tight. You need poster tack, the blue variety I like the best. Um, Glass cleanser, pledge floor shine. You need simple green or simple clean. And you need shelf space, and you need you need models too. You need clippers, and you need tools, and you need. I mean, I can go on and 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 on. Do 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 do. Oops. Anyway, there are so many things that you can use to help you in this hobby. So if you're really taking it seriously, all I can tell you is take it slow. Take one of these things called an envelope, and every paycheck just put like a 20 in there. If you can afford it, a 40. If you have a Christmas present, throw it in there too. If you have a birthday present, throw it in there too. If you're serious about that. And then, when it comes holiday season, give yourself a gift. Give yourself the airbrush, Make yourself a spray booth. Even giving yourself space to hobby, so this way you can constantly set up or easily set up, so you can just sit down and get to painting when you have the time. So this way you eliminate barriers of entries when it comes to hobby time, so that you can actually do it. Save money on video games and stuff like that, because if you're painting, it's really hard to find time for everything, to do everything in equal measure, especially if you want to prioritize painting. If you want to prioritize painting, and if you really want a great paint job, then you need to prioritize painting. Then you'll save money on the video game stuff, because that's not really going to make you better at painting if you're playing video games. But if you're actually painting, it's going to make you better at painting. So you can't make strides on a journey that you don't participate in. So play on, player. Play on. Okay, another rant over. Still creating shadows, still pushing paint around. That's all you do in this style of painting. So I really do like it. And I like that I'm infusing the airbrush style with the sketch style, with some layering over here, blending. Some of it is a little wet when it comes to the blending. Just pushing paint around and where I'm acceptable to. And you can see it's starting to come together, which I'm very, 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 very happy with. Thank you very much. And so anyway, I do want to talk a bit about this miniature here. This miniature in particular, it came from the Bones Kickstarter 3. And yep, it is a bendy bones. And a lot of people have stigmatism about these models. And even I was hesitant when it came to these models. But I just couldn't pass up the value for the miniatures you get versus how much you pay on this Kickstarter. So it behooves you to at least try it. And man, am I glad I did. First off, I don't have that much invested in each model to worry about if I make a mistake or not. If I drop it, I mean, I don't even care. It doesn't matter to me. I really don't care about the model itself, because it's just one model. Until actually after I paint it, then it becomes something important to me because I spent time on it. But I can just not rush, but I can really just not worry and have that worry slow me down in the painting process, because it's an inexpensive model. And in doing so, it has been so liberating for me. So if you're on the fence of buying Bones model, don't. Just, go for it. If you can afford it, but do your responsibilities first. Always take care of your responsibilities before you hobby. Remember, this is for enjoyment. Everything else is life. You have to live life, okay? Some people forget that. Live life, do things in moderation, or if you want to do things big, that's great, but take care of your responsibilities first, because that first and foremost is family, in my opinion. Okay? That's the way it should be, in my opinion. And you can have a difference of opinion. If you do have a valid argument, please put it down in the comments, but, I just believe in family. I believe that friends are family you choose, and if you're watching this, then hey, friend, how are you? Welcome. Let's go out for cannolis. I do like cannolis. Forget about it. All right. So, getting back to this model in particular is a Pathfinder Troll. Now, if you're new to all this, you may not know what Pathfinder is. So let me tell you. Pathfinder is a role-playing game. It's a fantasy role-playing game, an RPG. That's what role-playing game stands for. And that it was first published around 2010? No, 2009. Yeah. And that's from Piazzo Publishing. And Piazzo, their trademark is a golem. You may have seen it, a blue golem. They're pretty cool. And it extends and modifies and revises 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons. In fact, 3.5 to be exact, because it modifies those game rules and it improves upon it. I started playing D&D at version. Well, I mean, I've seen AD&D and my 2nd edition. My friend Jason Young, not so old because he was young like me. He had actually showed me. I think it was a Book of Val Darkness or something like that. But they had all the planes. Like, I just finished reading Dante's Inferno, where it had all the planes of hell, the Divine Comedy, and then he showed me D&D. Now I'm doing Shrapnel Red, and he showed me D&D, and he showed me all the planes of hell. I was like, I just read this, and they actually have it documented. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And now the fur is Shrapnel Red. I do believe I do a dry brush on that. If not now, I'd do it later on. And now I'm doing the white for the fingertips. And all I'm doing is just priming the areas for his fingertips and his teeth and his nails and anything that's going to be white. And his eyes are done, just white primer. So I'm just going to primer up stuff. So anywho, so this is published by Wizard on the Coast. And so Pathfinder RPG was intended to be a backward compatible to version 3.5. Great game. Really, truly great game. Broken when it came to wizards because they were overpowered, but if you weren't one of those meta players that really just played to dominate everything at all times and just played to actually have fun, like, a game should be played to have fun, the point of playing. If not, then why even bother? Unless you live a very sad existence and need, success in a game to be what does make you feel good. I mean, it's kind of sad, actually, when you don't have the approval in real life that in a game you just have to bully everybody else. Anywho, that is sad, and I'll be praying for those people. So Piazzo Publishing Company has been publishing Dungeon and Dragon magazines, which I read when I was a kid. I was addicted to those things. Those two are about Dungeons and Dragons. Like, Dungeon magazine had different maps and different options for your campaign, which was hecka cool, like sincerely hecka cool. So I used to read both of those in the library all the time. I was glued. I just love the pictures of dragons and fantasy. That was my thing. So now Dungeon and Dragon magazine are just digital now. You can get it from an app. Okay. So in about 2007, Wizard of the Coast actually announced that they were going to have a 4th edition, and replacing 3.5, and a lot of people were upset. They were very upset. So, Pathfinder started their own RPG, again, based on that 3.5, but they had their own book. And so they started. Now, Piazzo's decision to create Pathfinder RPG at the same time as the release of Dungeons and Dragons 4th edition, what it did was it split the game base. So, some people played 3.5-ish Pathfinder, while other people preferred, to try to go for Dungeons and Dragons 4th edition, which I didn't particularly like too much. I had quite a few of those books, but it just seemed like more of a miniatures game, which, I do like miniatures, but it just took away a lot from the game. Like, it took away a lot when it came to, 3.5. Again, there were problems with 3.5, and errata was abound, but still, I mean, it was an awesome system. Actually, Piazza won the ENI Awards at Gen Con for a variety of categories, including Best Publisher and Best Game. I think it was like 2008 or so when they did that, and they got all those top honors. Pathfinder was actually the top-selling role-playing game in the second quarter in 2011. It actually beat out Dungeons & Dragons, its predecessor, which has been the top role-playing game since 1974, the year of my birth. I was born at the same year Dungeons & Dragons was. All I'm saying. It's all I'm saying. It was destiny, It was just destiny. So, a lot of people actually nicknamed Pathfinder version 3.75 because 3.5 was out. I always thought that was funny. It's because of the modifications from 3.5 of Dungeons and Dragons. And it was actually intended to be compatible with 3.5. Very much so. The designer, I believe, was Jason Bowman. And they felt the basic classes of 3.5 was, I wasn't so excited. So they added a lot more different classes, more core classes. So there were little changes that happened, like fewer combat-oriented classes and different hit points for each level. And they kept on tweaking the system, essentially trying to perfect it. Now, Pathfinder, the game core book, was a hardback book. I remember it was a pretty big book, and it had a lot of supplements and expansions. I mean, they created Pathfinder Society. This monster in particular comes from the Bestiary. It also comes from an adventure path, and that's one of the published adventures that they have. And they have one that you can sign up, and every month you'll get a module for that adventure, and it'll continue the adventure throughout the series. I believe there's 5 or 6, I think, per. It's like every 6 months they come up with a new adventure. I think it's that. Was it 12? Like every year they come up with one. I don't know. It's been a while. I did have the first one, burning something. The second one, the third module was the full complete sets, and I actually sold them. I sold them when I was down on my luck, and I did get to play the first module, the first book, and man, it was very in-depth. It was very enjoyable. I mean, the adventures itself, Pathfinder was amazing. It was so in-depth and so detailed. All the people were fleshed out. All the story was cohesive. It was quite the campaign. And I have to tell you, homebrew and that following that to a T, man, it is amazing. Amazing. So, yeah, that was a great module. And it was a really fun playthrough. Now, this model is actually from that. I don't know which adventure. I think it was the first one. It could be the second one. But Piazza actually also published novels on Pathfinder Tales. Within that Pathfinder setting that they created, like the Prince of Wolves came out in 2010. That was written by David Ross. That was a good book. He was a former editor of actual Dragon magazine, and other titles in the series. He has like 30 books, including The City of the Fallen Sky, let me see. Winter Witch, Wizard Mask, The Death's Heretic. The Death's Heretic is a book. Right now I'm going to do Serapon Sepia, and just for the teeth and for the nails, and I'm just gonna just darken it up. And I do that. I do the browns. Wait, Agrat's Earthshade and then Serapon Sepia. Usually when it comes to teeth and nails, I like to do that and bone as well. But I add some more things to bones. So bones, and it's a bones figure. I know, right? So anyway, Audible actually gave away a free audiobook, and I got the Death's Heretic, and wow, what a book! I was very impressed because the choice of vocabulary was extensive in that book, so it had me thinking of words and remembering words from when I went into college. So the language is really high. So it's not a book that I would think a younger person would want to read. It's not a teen novel as much, unless the teen had an exceptional lexicon. But it was quite involved, and I enjoyed it very very much. In fact, I listened to it while I was learning how to model and paint models back in the days. Well, I say back in the days, like a year ago or so. Um, so there was a card game actually. And a line of gaming miniatures for Pathfinder Battles, which was produced by WizKids, another company, and a card game based on the role-playing game, the adventure card game, Pathfinder Adventure card game, and that was at Gen Con 2013, and that was made from this guy from Lone Shark Games, Mike Slinker. Oh, I am butchering that name. And it was the initial set game for Rise of the Rune Lords. And I did have that whole adventure path. That's what it was, the Rise of the Rune Lords. What a game! What a game! And then the Skulls and Shackles and the Wrath of the Righteous was also used for this part of the game. So it was quite in depth. There have been computer games adaptations for Pathfinder, like Pathfinder Online, which came out in 2012. Um, so, they do have Goblin Works and Piazza, which was attracting a Kickstarter. Um, was alpha tested in June 2014 as far as video games. And then in May, 2017 here, another video game called Pathfinder Kingmaker was announced by developers Owlcat Games as well. So when it comes to Pathfinder's role-playing game, and it's many bestiaries, and it's just an exciting line, and it's an exciting it is an exciting miniature collection, and I'm really happy that I had an opportunity to paint up this troll, because it's part of something larger than just a miniature. There's history behind it, coming from the video game that I really loved. Coming from the video game that I really loved. What is this here? Do a dry brush onto the fur here. So coming from a game that I used to love, 3.5, I almost vowed never to play any other role-playing game ever, just 3.5. Only because I have just so many fond memories. There were so many campaigns that I did that lasted, a week long. And I recently, within this year, bought 5th edition. And I have to say, I'm pleased with 5th edition. I think it's a good game. I really do. They don't have those daily powers and other powers. I just think it's a great game. Alright, now I'm going for some Ghost Tint, Magenta, as well as some Lost Pink together, and I'm going to attack that tongue. I'm just going to tint it. Right now it's purple, and it can't stay purple, because that's noticeable, and I don't know if my wife would be too happy. So now I'm going to put some flow weight in, and what I'm doing is some line highlighting, edge highlighting, just getting the raised edges right there with the lust pink, so this way it can turn the color of the entire tongue a pinkish instead of a purplish. So that's what I was going for. So so far, this iconic monster within my collection now, coming from the Pathfinder series, it's looking good. It's looking pretty good, especially since, I mean, you really just, you can see yourself that it really didn't take a long time. Other minis has taken, oh my gosh, my goodness, like really ridiculous amount of time. This, I have been powering through this. I have been getting so much quicker and so much better at painting. Like, it went from being as slow as a snail, like really, really slow at painting, because every decision had to be really contemplated. And let's say, oh, I'm going to work on the teeth today. So this one, I worked on the teeth, and then the nails, and then his feet, and everything that was white, and his eyes. And now, what I would do is I'll just do one hand. And that would prime up that one hand for the nails alone, and that would be a day's worth of work. And then the other hand would be the next day, and then the teeth would be the next day, and then the feet would be the next day, and then another foot would be the next day. And the thing is that it would take me 5 days just to put primer onto the nails. And as you can see, I did that in one step. I did them all in one step. Really, really easy. Okay, time for some Lust Pink. Really pink it out now that I put some ghost tint in there. And I did that as well. Okay, next up, what I'm going to do is take Original the Chink Orange, and I am going to highlight every single one of this Trolled Hide's blisters. Why, you may ask? Because it really comes up with a contrast and really sells the orange if the raised areas were in fact that chink orange, while in the recesses and in the back of that you'll see the gradient that goes from that really, really sharp chink orange to the shadows and almost black. And the contrast with these raised areas with that kind of transition, it's amazing. It really is amazing. I really do. I'm really happy with the way it came out. So, okay, so I'm going to do that for a bit throughout the entire miniature. And believe me, there are my fair share of blisters, I think it's called, troll hide, bumps. I don't know what you want to call it. But there was a ton of those things all over this miniature. Really, really, really took up a lot to do that. So, anywho, I demoed so many games recently, and I came home with this one called Shadespire. Now, I did do a video on Shadespire a while ago and why it was a good thing or not, and I said it was a good thing. So now that Shadespire is here, and since I have Nagash in the box right behind me, I think he would be upset if I didn't get Shadespire. So, yep, I got it. Which, it's something that I really want to play, possibly with my family and with my friends, because nobody I know around here really war games to that extent. And the people that I do know that war game, they're so into it, and they take it so seriously that, I don't know, sometimes I don't feel all that comfortable around everybody, because it's like everybody's so damn serious. I don't know why. I don't know why. I mean, it's just a game, and you're supposed to have some fun. Sure, you want to win, but this isn't a tournament. I do wish to start something around here. I was speaking with Adam Loper, Adam Smasher, Adam from Tabletop Minions, Uncle Adam, about coming up with some kind of convention here in Maryland, in Western Maryland, and really, really coming up with something special is what I want to do. So really coming up with something special is my goal. And he said, well, start up small, and learn from your mistakes, and plan as if nobody is going to come so you don't lose a lot of money. So, I might do that. I might do that. I would love to do that. I know Miranda from Wargamer Girl, she actually runs Valhalla, and that's more West Coast. And I wouldn't mind doing a Kickstarter to gauge interest of doing a Valhalla here. Oh, time for some shades. Means I'm going to do the base and give a coat throughout the whole thing. So you can see right there, I'm using a variety of the shades from Game Workshop. And they're in the pots, so that means I transfer it over to my airbrush. And I'm going to airbrush them on. Now, a lot of people say don't airbrush, and like it doesn't matter to airbrush shades through your airbrush, and because it's not thick enough to do anything. And I say poopycock. That is in no way true. I love the way the airbrush atomizes the shade in order to create a lens or a glaze throughout any miniature, all to build up some really slowly building colors, like transitions throughout the base. I really think it's a great look, and that it does a great job in conveying that, and conveying the fact that that it's just like subtle transitions. I love that. I really, really do. I think using these shades through airbrush is amazing. Using inks through the airbrush is amazing. Washes, amazing. And I know I've done one with Army Painter, and so far it's come out successful as well. And I did get the set of washes as well, so I'm really happy about working with them with the variety of colors that I have. Because sometimes you just want to glaze with a different color, and to have it there, it is pretty cool. It really is pretty cool. So I love it. I love shooting washes through an airbrush, and I'm not afraid to do so. So there you go. There's always that. But as far as the miniature is concerned, it's just like 99% done. I do one last thing to the miniature just to dial back the intensity and to unify the piece towards the end. And that's, I shoot one of these shades, and I just, from a very, very long distance away, just to give it a slight sheen of a blue color, because blue is the complementary color of orange, so I just wanted to do that. And it worked out pretty well. I mean, in my opinion, it really did work out very, very well towards the end. And because right now, all I'm doing is going to shoot some shades over there. Shooting some shades. That's all I'll be doing. Shooting some shades. So while I was at PAX, and I'm doing a video about that too, and I haven't done one already, and I was at PAX Unplug in Pennsylvania, and it was really amazing to see all the variety of games. I never knew that many games existed. I really never did. And there was a decent amount of miniatures games, but mainly it was card games and token games, I call them. There was this one game that was a role-playing game that was a comic book. That was pretty cool too. And one thing that I focused on, well, two companies that I focused on. One was the company, and it was called speaking Japanese, and it was an educational card game that helped you put together Japanese, and I think it was amazing. that a company out there teaches language via a card game. And if I could bring that into the classroom, I will. I'm a language teacher, so bringing language and having fun and using games in education is really important to me. It takes my love of gaming and it incorporates it with my love for education and kids and caring about the future. And when you marry those two things together, man, oh man, is that special. That is super special. So Games is one of the companies, and that is definitely language. And there was another company that put in there and saying that, video games and other games, playing certain games, help treat certain kinds of feelings. And I, for one, firsthand can see concern over a lot of this generation because everyone's very in touch with their feelings, but it just feels like, people are sad and more people are suffering depression. And I say, why is that? It really breaks my heart to have, this generation or any generation really suffer from depression and sadness because there's lack of hope. And I'm here to say is like, you can be the light of the world. You can bring hope to others, and you can encourage others to do well, or you could tear them down, and you could destroy them. I think that's one of the reasons why when I play these games, I like being competitive and two people having fun instead of dominating them, because I don't need a game to make me feel good about who I am as a person. I need me being a good person helping me feel like I'm doing the right thing as a person. That's it, right there. So that part is super important to me. Being a good person and exemplifying that, and helping people when they're in need and being the light of the world. And I pray to God for everybody. I do. I really do. I really hope that more and more people gain hope. So when it comes to all these depressive illnesses, sadness, and pain, going through emotions, this company found out that playing certain games, video games or other games, actually help cope with these problems. That games can be used for not only educational purposes, but for treatment as well. And can you imagine someone who has problems working with people, working together in a D&D campaign to get a goal accomplished? Or, someone who has a problem multitasking and then running an army on 40K, being able to remember what everybody does and strategizing and thinking at that high level. It's just, games can be used therapeutically, it can be used educationally, and they can be used in a lot of variety of senses instead of just for entertainment. That there's more to it is what I'm trying to say, and that it is possible for someone to be able to be successful at life and have gaming actually help them do so. And that's so positive for me. And I really think that, games are getting a short end of the stick, proverbially. And that, people just think, oh, it's just for recreational purposes. But there's meditative purposes, there's healing purposes. When I paint the miniature, I'm in my zone. I could be angry, upset, sad, frustrated, but when I'm painting, all that melts away. It melts away as if I had not a care in the world. And truly, 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 it's amazing how painting miniatures does that for me. Because I can actually accomplish something. And to me, that is very, very important. To be able to be successful at something. Because we all want to succeed at something. We do. We want to be successful. Nobody wants to fail. Especially fail constantly. In fact, a lot of people on YouTube watch all these videos of people failing at doing things all the time and people laughing at them. I mean, I think it's just desensitizing us to violence, desensitizing us to the unfortunates and misfortunes of others, and I think it's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous. There are occasions where, though, I must say that some of these people are not thinking things through, do have to suffer the consequences for their actions so that they may learn from those mistakes. And, you know, unfortunately, I'm guilty of laughing too sometimes. Okay? Not perfect here. But I'm trying. Oh, good golly, Miss Molly. I gotta say. So, I'm sorry about squeaky chair. If you hear squeaky chairs in the background, gotta oil that at some point. I wonder if I put some needle juice from Badger Company onto this chair, if it would actually make a difference. Here's some needle juice, and I'll put it on the chair and see if it continues to squeak. Can you imagine? Can you imagine it stops? Well, I guess it's grease, right? I think it might work. We will try. Because on the fly, I randomly do things like, grease my chair. Never a dull moment. No, there's no access point to this. Anyway, so a needle pulling thread. Now this is going to be interesting. And it's going to be interesting is because I have 15% of life on my computer and my charger is upstairs. So, folks, this is going to be the first and hopefully the only time I have to actually walk around with my mic and my computer to plug it in upstairs using one hand. This is definitely going to be an adventure. Okay, so here I am. I'm going to flock, and what I did is I used some scenic basing material there, and it's just a little bit of flocking. I haven't used that flocking yet, so I kind of wanted to do that. I kind of looked into my pile of flock or basing material, and in that basing material, I saw this flock, and I was like, you know what? Why not? There's not enough color on that base. It was all dark and grim. It's a dark, grim future where there's only, fighting. So anyway, what I'm doing here is, there's a Seraphon sepia, and I'm going to create a wash. And the wash, this is interesting because now I'm in a hallway, so it sounds completely different. I wonder how it's going to come out in the final version. But, maybe I can record the rest of these here. Who knows? Might be an echo. So all I'm doing is touching up the base. At this point in time, when it comes to painting up the base, you kind of just, to me, there's no real wrong way to do it. I mean, if it's a little too dark, you added a little lighter colors. If it's a little too light, you darken it up with another wash, and you go back and forth until you are to where you need to be. And that's it. There's nothing to it, really. I do add later on, I add some leaf-based litter. And the reason why I add the leaf-based litter onto the miniature is because I wanted to add some more variety of color. Again, I think the base came out too dull, so I wanted to add some interest into it. And I think the miniature in itself is a bit too well, it's very, very bright, and I wanted to create a contrast in between that. So I did create the contrast, but I think I went a little too far with it. So what I really want to do is throw in some different colors in there, like browns and all these different kind of colors, and play around with it. That's what I wanted to do. I just want to play around with a lot of different colors and experiment with a lot of different things. And part of me painting miniatures is experimenting with things, and sometimes they're successful, and other times maybe not so much. But at least I tried, right? That's all I can say. Okay, so I have successfully gone from downstairs into the studio to upstairs into the spare room where the actual charger for the computer is, and so it's not going to die. Oh, I only bring you quality stuff here, folks. Quality. This is what you come to expect from a professionally produced YouTube channel where someone forgets to plug their computer in. But hey, that's part of it, right? And so if you hear voices in the background, it's because I'm upstairs instead of downstairs, and yeah, I had to do what I had to do so I could charge up my computer. Yeah, I didn't want her to die after so long. I mean, I only do have, what, 10 minutes left for this video? So that's not so bad. Okay, so what am I doing here? I am painting, was I painting the base? Yep, I'm painting the base, the trim, and I say this a lot, every time I actually paint the bottoms of these. It's because you want to separate the world that you're creating inside the miniature with the rest of the world outside, because they're not supposed to. This is supposed to be a little, I guess, a little plinth or a little section of a smaller world that we do not exist in as humans. And within that world, this little happy troll is doing his thing, right? And what's separating the real world from this fantasy little miniature world? Well, it's the black rim around the base that frames the miniature, and then say, okay, everything inside this little square or circle is fantasy, and everything outside of it is reality. So just creating that little thing, and it does that psychologically, at a certain level. So when you look at it, you got to see this like terrifying monster, and the rocks that are surrounding it as it's crawling through this little environment, but it's never going to escape its little base there. It's going to stay inside its base, and it's going to live all happily. It's a little orange troll life, and doing doing his thing, like dancing. Yes, trolls dance. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is create the saliva. And a lot of people on Facebook were intrigued at how I did the drool. This is how I did it. All I did was take the hot glue gun, right, and make sure it was nice and wet. And then I just glued a bit all the way up from the top. And I glued it down, baby. All right, and I glued it straight down to the base. And that was it. That was all I did. So just a little glob of glue. I'm going to do it again from the tongue. All right, just a little bit of glue. And then all I do is just pull it down. I mean, it has to be big enough that it creates like some kind of glob that actually slimes straight down. There it is, a little string. And then all you have to do is attach it to the floor. Now, I actually attach it to the bush that I put in there earlier, so my bad. But, I figured 2 was pretty good. I didn't want to overdo it, and a lot of people, and that's the thing, when it comes to drool effects like that, you do want to pay attention, like less is more. You don't want to really overdo it, okay? So if you're doing something like this, don't overdo it. Okay, you can easily do it, and just it detracts. So, because if you keep on playing with something, sometimes you take stuff away. Less is more sometimes. So that is it with the drool. What I do is I do clip off a bit of the excess pieces, and I do so with a scissors, and then I try to stretch the pieces out. And as I was looking at the saliva, it kind of still looked like glue at the bottom pieces, and I wanted to cover that up. So I had to figure out a way to remove the excess, which I'm starting to do now in the pictures, in the video. And then what I do is I add leaf litter onto the contact pieces on the base. So this way it's actually covering up where it pools, where the hot glue actually pools onto the base. And what you're left with is more realistic saliva going onto the floor, because you don't really notice the leaves are actually covering up some of the Saliva. And yes, I did use a hot glue for the saliva, and I did not use Uhu glue. A lot of people said, Uhu, you used Uhu glue. And last time I did that, I tried to use Uhu glue on styrofoam, and it ate the styrofoam, so I don't know how safe that is when it comes to all the materials I'm using, because I'm using basing materials, and I'm using the rock basing, and then I'm putting the primer on it, and you just don't know. So this time, what I'm going to do is, usually I use PVA, which is white glue or Elmer's glue, and I put the leaf litter down base into it because it's transparent when it dries, so you don't really see anything residue behind it. But this time I have saliva, so I wanted to get serious with it and really glue it down with the super glue, and then put the leaf litter on top of it to cover up any of that breathing that it does. And it creates that crazing, and I didn't want that effect, so especially towards the end. Now, the only regret I have here is having the drool onto the plant itself, which actually bends the saliva effect. But that in mind, what I do is putting that leaf litter to cover it really indeed helps it out quite a bit. So there it is. You got yourself a nice little leaf litter in there. And if you don't know what these are, actually they're birch tree seeds, and they're dried up. If you take birch tree seeds and dry them up, they actually look like little leaves. So you can use them for your basing. Now, these basing materials I ordered from a company called Green Stuff World, and I had a whole bunch of stuff with it. And since I was ordering a whole bunch of stuff from there anyway, I was like, well, I'm not going to track down a birch seed just to get the leaves and dry it. I got a whole container over there of at least 3,000 little leaves in there. Like, at least. So I'm never going to run out of these things. I mean, never say never, but still, I would do every miniature I had. Wait, let me rephrase that. I will not do every miniature I had. That just sounds weird. I will paint every miniature that I have, and I will put leaf litter all over the floor on these miniatures, and still have more left over. It's like I came to the party, and yeah, I brought refreshments. It's on. So, you ever know that dude? That dude in the party that saves the party? Yeah, that dude. Anyway, let's get back onto the saliva, just gently putting that on. And I'm using a special tweezers, and it has like an L shape. It really allows you to see where you're putting things on better. And I have a lot of different kinds of tweezers. These are one of my favorites when it comes to this, and when it comes to decals as well. The only problem is my system for putting away the tools isn't the most efficient system, and sometimes I don't know where I put it. So I grab any tweezer the first tweezers that I find, and I'll just use that, and I'm like, fine, whatever, just grab and go. I don't know if you're a painter or miniature painter or stuff like that. Do you have everything so organized that you know exactly where all your tools are, like you should? Or are you like me and I go and just throw everything everywhere and I'm like, oh, something's going to find out. Okay, I can use this and I can use that, and just throw it together and make it happen. I don't know. There are two different kinds of painters, right? Some people are really organized. And it's really ironic because I do have this like OCD thing about a lot of things. But, I guess if you looked at the back where I do the intros and outros, you could see I'm pretty OCD about a lot of things. Like all the paints have to be in a row and everything else. But for some reason, my tools, I just throw them all in a box and like, that's it. I'm done. I don't care. Whatever. They're in the box. They can't go away far. But it's like I have to dump the box every time I need to find something. I have to find a better way. There must be a better way. I wonder if they make MDF storage holder for tools. I'm sure they could design one, but specifically for modeling tools. I think that would be cool, especially if it was inexpensive. Okay, so all the leaf litter seems to be on there. I'm checking to make sure that is all together, and yes, it looks pretty good. Right there, and it's really becoming colorful because it has all that ballast on there on the bottom, and it was just looking so dark down there, and the miniature's so bright that the contrast really stunk. So I had to make sure that there was some kind of unity to the model, because you don't want the miniature to be super, super bright and then the base be completely black and just fade away into obscurity. He has to live in some kind of little world, and his little world that I'm creating is inside that little base right there. So that has to be realistic, or as realistic as the fantasy miniature can be. Now, look at all the detail that I got out of Reaper Bones. Now, a lot of people say that this material and this company puts together miniatures that lacks luster when it comes to detail. Maybe the first brand and the first Kickstarter, they lacklustered when it came to, because they were just trying to figure out how to use it. But there's a lot of detail in this thing, and it worked out really, really well. Now, the one thing I wanted to do, I thought this troll was too clean. And come on, you're a troll. You don't stop to manicure your nails. You don't stop to brush your teeth. You don't stop to take care of yourself. You just let yourself go, you know? It's like when you're in high school and they have that one girl that just doesn't do her hair. She just lets herself go. It's the way it is. So what I do is I take alcohol and I take pigments, right? And I take the pigments and I mix it in with the alcohol, and and it's going to create a mud effect, because alcohol, and I like using alcohol. You can use water, but I like using alcohol for the simple reason is that alcohol dries really quickly. So what it's going to do is going to stain whatever I put this on, and it'll look like dirt. And where I got these pigments from is from a pastel. I bought a pastel, several colors, and I grinded them down with a mortar and pestle, which I learned from my chat forums. I used to take a hobby knife in the back of it and just slowly whittle away at it until it became really, really fine. But then I just took a mortar and pestle, and it was just so easy to grind these down. And I have all these different colors, and I think it cost me like $4 because it was on sale. And really, it's pretty amazing. So first off, I wanted to get the ground. Again, it's all black. I wanted to get a little brown since I already have the grass on there, and I wanted to have a little bit of a ground texture, which I really like. And then I want to have some of that ground texture on the model itself, like having it come up the legs, the front and the back of the legs, and on the floor. So this is a dirty, dirty troll, and he's been, mucking about and going through the woods, and he got himself a little dirty. Not too dirty, but dirty enough, dirty enough that he looks a little more realistic, even though he's bright orange. So kind of wanted to do something a little different there, and then I think I achieved that with doing this, and it came out really well. Now what I'm doing is I'm wetting it, and I am taking this brush, right, and I'm flicking it, and what that does is add just a little bit of droplets all throughout the miniature, just where the mud would have splattered, and that helps. And of course I'm going to drop the mixture over there, but I'm going to take it over here, and I'm just going to keep going with it. Keep going. Again, alcohol works so well, and really, I try to use a high percent alcohol, and it dries so quickly, and it really has a great effect to it. And the good thing about using this technique is that you, especially if you're grinding down pastels, you have all these colors for a very very low cost. And you can have all these kinds of effects. Now, I like the orange because it looks like rust. The red looks like a Mars type of cruddy dust planet, and you have the grays for just dust and storms, and you have like a white or an off-white, and you can just mix it into the alcohol and then just put it on and create all these kinds of like weathering for all these kind of effects for your miniatures. And I think that's really cool to do that in a really inexpensive way to be able to do that. And since I'm using alcohol, it dries super quick. And that's a last detail that I add to this. I do hit it with a Tester's Dull Coat, but it is just about done. There it is. And what a great miniature, what a fun miniature to paint, and what a fun miniature to have. And all these colors, and that I wouldn't have done if it wasn't because my wife had inspired me to do it and suggested to me that I should do it. And, I really have to thank her for this. And, you guys, this guy would not be orange if it weren't for her. That's for sure. But stepping out of the comfort zone, this is what it looks like. And I'm really happy with the results. So this is me signing off. I'll see you in just a bit on the outro. Bye! Well, here it is, all painted up, and came out pretty well, considering I'm not used to painting orange. What do you think?
I'm being attacked by the orange! Oh, he's pretty. Thanks for doing orange. Good job.
That's a good one.